I'm Courtney. We're a family of 5 trying to grow as much of our own food as we can, and we raise chickens. Our kids wanted to name our little backyard farm, so we did. It's called Heart Pine Farms. Not only is growing onions from seed the most economical way to grow them, in our experience we've had the most success growing beautiful organic onions when we start them from seed. We'll show you how. If you're like me trying to save money on your grocery bill, onions are one of those staple items that are always nice to have at your fingertips in the kitchen. Even if they're chopped and frozen, they're so easy just to pull out and use in recipes. I wanted to show you one of the main methods that we've found to contribute to success in growing onions. That's starting them indoors from seeds. We've just found that we've gotten the healthiest, biggest onion bulbs by growing them this way. You can also grow them from sets, which are tiny onion bulbs, and from transplants, which are bare root onion seedlings. Another thing we found is that you can find the biggest variety of onions when you're buying seeds versus sets or transplants. Today I'm going to show you how we're going to start our onion seeds. There are lots of seed starting methods, but I'm going to show you the method that has worked for us for about the past decade after lots of trial and error, figuring out what works best for us. We're growing cipollini onions, which are smaller, sweet, flying saucer-shaped onions that are amazing caramelized. They're short-day onions which grow well in the south as opposed to long-day onions for northern locations. Intermediate-day onions grow well in areas in between. Since we're in Zone 7B, we're going to try growing the intermediate-day variety Valencia along with cipollinis this year to see how they do. I'm planning on planting 3 4x8 raised beds of onions, so that's 112 onions per bed because I plant them 6 inches apart in the beds. So I have my trays set up here. They're really heavy duty. I got these from Bootstrap Farmer. They have holes in the bottom for good drainage. And once the seedlings start growing, after the seeds have germinated, I'm gonna start to water these from the bottom. So I'll fill these maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of the way up with water and set the seed trays right inside, and they're gonna water up through the holes here. First, I want to show you the medium that I use for seed starting. I've used this for years with much success. It's Fox Farm Happy Frog potting soil. I should note that potting soil usually isn't a good choice for seed starting because it's heavy and it doesn't drain well, but this potting soil, even though it's really rich, it drains really well. And a long time ago, I used to make my own soil blocks, and then I would transplant the seedlings into bigger pots before I would bring them outside to plant in the garden. But this soil right here carries me from the seed starting process through the growing of the seedlings until I'm ready to harden them off and plant them out in the garden. So I put some soil in this bucket here because when I start my seeds, I like to pre-moisten the soil. Not so that it's really soggy, but so it's kind of like a wrung out sponge. And I do that before I even put the soil into the pots. I just go in here and I mix it all together using my hands. Last year we started our onion seeds indoors on February 15th, and then we planted them outdoors on April 20th. So it's a good 8 to 10 weeks of growing your onion seedlings indoors before you bring them outside. And that really gives them a really good start before they go outside when daylight hours really start to increase. And then they'll really start to get going before it gets hot in the summertime. We harvested our onions on July 20th. We should have a July harvest with these onions too, because we're pretty much right on schedule with last year. So you can see how I'm just adding the soil, and I also tap it down a little bit and make sure that it's not super compacted, but somewhat compacted, because when you water the seeds from the top, the soil can collapse and then the seeds will get displaced. I just want to make sure there's enough soil in each pot here. The trays are all filled and ready to go, so I'm going to take this pencil right here because I want to plant my onion seeds about 1/4 of an inch deep. I measured the eraser right here and it's about 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to use this just to poke each cell like this, and then I can place the seeds in. Okay, these are the cipollini seeds. I'm just placing a couple of seeds in each cell here, making sure they're no deeper than 1/4 of an inch. If you're using a larger container, you can just broadcast the seeds around. Onion seedlings are really easy to separate with a fork when it's time to transplant them into the garden. Here I'm just adding a layer of the dry starting medium and gently spreading it to make sure the seeds are covered. Both trays of onions are planted and ready to go, and I'm about ready to bring them inside and put them on heat mats, but I wanted to mention really quick about watering. When the seedlings are growing, I'll be watering from below, but until that happens, before the seeds germinate, or until the seeds germinate, I'm going to be using a spray bottle like this, or a pump sprayer makes that job even quicker, because the spray bottle will keep the soil moist without displacing the seeds. If you use a watering can, it can kind of flood the trays and the seeds can become displaced. So I will lightly mist the surface if the color of the soil lightens or if it feels dry. You just want to keep it constantly moist like a wrung out sponge, because the seeds need adequate moisture in order to germinate. I place the trays on heat mats to promote faster germination, and as soon as all of the seeds have germinated, I turn the heat mats off. I set a timer on the grow lights to give the seedlings no more than 10 hours of light per day, since short day onion plants start to form bulbs when daylight hours reach above 10 hours to 12 hours. Long day onions are about 14 to 16 hours. I make sure to trim the tops of the seedlings so they don't get much taller than 2 inches or the seedlings seem to topple over. Here you can see a photo of last year's seedlings being hardened off on the porch for a week before transplanting in the garden. You can see how we planted them 6 inches apart in our 4x8 bed. Of course, we added compost before we planted and provided consistent moisture while they were growing. We ended up having a beautiful harvest. We hope you'll give onions a try in your garden if you haven't already, because they're so much fun and satisfying to grow. If you enjoyed our video, we'd love it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so we can grow food together.